of Directors, President Derek Jack from Brigham Young University, and the Executive Director, Deb Snyder, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the first AAEE Professional Development webinar for this year. My name is Daphne Donaldson, and I work with the East Baton Rouge Parish School System in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in the Office of Human Resources. And I serve as a member at large for the professional development side of this organization. We are so excited and honored to have Trina Edwards from Diversity in Education to kick off our 2017 AAEE webinar series. Trina Edwards is the Editor-in-Chief of Diversity in Ed, a magazine, job board, and online career center that connects new and credentialed job seekers in education with school leaders committed to diversity recruitment. Trina's master's degree and 10 years of experience as a registered nurse and healthcare educator prepared her for a smooth transition into her role of advisor to organizational leaders responsible for diversity recruitment and hiring. 18 years later, Trina has found another passion in community outreach opportunities of lecturing young people on shaping their career paths. Just as a reminder, as we continue through this process, if you have any technical issues, on the right corner of your screen, you should see a question mark in a white circle and the word help underneath it. You can click there to contact help, or you can go online at anymeeting.com for assistance. Please inbox me or message me any questions that you may have regarding the presentation. At the end of today's webinar, we will share some of your questions with Trina to respond, and we will answer as many as possible. So with no further delay, I am very honored to introduce you all to Ms. Trina Edwards. It'll take a few seconds for her screen to come up. Thank you.
Thanks, Daphne, for the introduction. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. I'm not sure if you can or not, and hopefully you can also see my screen at this time. Daphne, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you see the screen?
It's working, so it's coming up in a few seconds.
Okay, very good. If you can let me know when it appears, that'll be great. It should be a welcome screen. But I'll just take this time to say thanks again, Daphne, for the introduction. And thank you, Deb Snyder, Executive Director, for inviting me to be a part of AAEE's webinar kickoff series. I'd also like to thank you, Sarah Russell, who is AAEE's Membership Services and Communications Coordinator. But to me, she has been a tremendous cheerleader and a voice of encouragement. So thanks again, Sarah, for all of your help and support in putting this webinar presentation together. I'd also like to take a second to thank and acknowledge all of the attendees for taking time out of your busy day to join in. Thank you very much and welcome. Today, I'd like to share some information with you that other principals and school leaders and recruiters have found useful in their efforts to recruit good teachers. And once
ready
again,
to go.
Okay, were you able to hear?
Yes, everything's good.
Okay, very good. Once again, my name is Trina Edwards, and I am the Editor-in-Chief of Diversity in Ed magazine, online job board, and teacher recruitment services. You should see my email address. Please feel free to email me afterwards if you have additional questions once we're finished our session. And certainly if you have any comments to share, I'd greatly appreciate it. You may also give me a call. I'll post this again at the end of the webinar. So again, please feel free to contact me at any time. This webinar titled 7 Recruitment Principles for Principals, but if you are an education leader or a human resource recruiter, the concepts of the webinar will also be useful to you in your recruitment role. Our goal today is to address core concepts about school culture and to examine how other people's perceptions of a school's culture and presence will affect the recruitment of top teacher talent. Questions we will explore. Number one, what is the best way to advertise a teaching job? Number 2, what is it that will attract good teachers to your schools? And number 3, how can you tell if a candidate will be a good fit for your school? What will you take away today? Well, I'll share 7 principles to help diagnose those strengths of your school's culture and ways to identify specific areas to showcase. In addition, you'll learn how to better utilize your school's culture and instructional practices to attract, hire, and retain outstanding teachers. Okay, let's get started. Principle number 1, be a part of the solution by getting real about the problem. Let me ask you a few questions. And I'll do that throughout the presentation. And of course, I can't hear your responses, but simply think about those, and perhaps you may want to even jot down some notes so you can revisit this after the webinar. But do you have a revolving door of teachers? What's your teacher turnover rate? Are your good teachers staying or are they leaving? And are you able to recruit good teachers to your school? And what about attracting them? Are you attracting good teachers? Let's take a look at the picture. Although I borrowed it from my good friend, Dr. Joshua Cole, award-winning principal and author of Leading While White, it's a very commonly used cartoon. And the authority figure sitting behind the desk tells the animals, who are obviously there to compete for something, he tells them, for a fair selection, everybody has to do the same, take the same exam. Please climb that tree. Okay, here's the spoiler alert. Only that monkey is climbing that tree today. Many of you are probably familiar with the image, and the argument usually made by educators sharing this cartoon is that we should have different standards of assessment for different students because the students are clearly unique individuals with different strengths and weaknesses. It isn't fair to hold them all to the same standards. Guys, here's where we get real about the problem. Should this concept only apply to students, or should we apply it to our teachers as well? Are you trying to recruit the same type of teacher for different types of students? I don't think that you are. I've worked with a lot of principals and school leaders over the years, and I've come to realize just how skilled principals really are. I know you have a high level of emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills, and I know exactly how you build and like to build and able to build collaboration and get people to work together. I also know you invest a huge amount of time in making the right appointments and getting people in the right roles, especially those teachers. That is why I know you can see more in that picture than what really meets the eye. You actually see the solution to the problem. Again, what do you see? You see the solution to the problem. You see each individual as having different backgrounds that can better help others adapt to challenges and opportunities. You also see individuals as having unique experiences that different perspectives and bring different perspectives to the table. And you see individuals as distinctive, having distinctive abilities that can be used to lead in creative ways. And needless to say, you see individuals with special languages used to communicate with others who also understand the language. And what you're looking for at this point, what you're looking at is called diversity. So if you ask yourself again the question, what's the problem? I'll say the problem is that we too often are trying to recruit goldfish. Remember the picture, who could climb trees. Goldfish don't climb trees. Instead, you should write job announcements specific to types of teachers you need to hire. You should advertise those open positions where those types of teachers will see them. You have to go to where those specific teachers are actually hanging out or being, or where they are online in the community. You have to go to that particular group. So if you're looking for a high school Spanish teacher, I know you're not going to France. Of course you're not. You're going to go right where they are. So use the same consideration when trying to recruit any type of teacher. Now that we know that it's more to it than just recruiting teachers of diverse backgrounds, we definitely know they're going to represent those students of diverse backgrounds as well. And we should be good and on our way now to building a diverse workforce because we know doing so will have a positive effect on the overall student achievement and successful academic outcomes for all, right? Well, you don't have to take my word for it. Let me go to a video clip and you can listen to a few teachers. It's a very short clip. A few teachers in Oregon are saying about diversity. Stay with me.
Because race informs so much of people's lives, whether they realize it or not, it's that much more important to bring in educators who look like the students we're serving. Oftentimes, students of color, just like their teachers, are navigating and inhabiting multiple worlds. Being able to navigate those worlds fluidly is important, and students need to see that.
Because we're seeing more diverse classrooms, and we need to make sure that the faces of the teachers are matching the students.
And teachers do more than just teach content. They really are role models. Teachers of color provide a different perspective.
I was the only student in my classes whose mother was non-English speaking. Had some teacher actually reached out to me and said, hey, there are other kids like you, or hey, I was just like you, I would have felt more comfortable. But instead, I felt incredibly isolated. Teachers of color can actually reach out to students and make students feel included.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that teachers of color are placed in schools where there's a larger number of students of color. I think an educator of color dispels a lot of the myths and a lot of the stereotypes about who men and women of color are.
My experience of being a teacher of color in Oregon has been quite amazing.
Oregon is incredibly diverse, and we're really working together to make sure that all students receive a good education.
Okay, let's see if we can get back here on track. And okay. I hope you enjoyed that and it was somewhat insightful for you. And I wish I can tell you that recruiting a diverse workforce is simple and easy, but it really isn't. And there are many factors that may interfere with the process. One being biases. Not something that we can certainly control about other people, but we can certainly look inwardly and see if there are any that we may have. And this leads me to introducing the second principle, tests for biases. As a school leader or a member of the HR hiring team, you really are well served by learning about those unconscious and automatic biases you or those around you may have. And your willingness to examine them is actually very important. It's a big step towards understanding the stereotypes and prejudices that may exist within an organization. And for those who are truly interested in creating equity in education and recruiting top teacher talent, you need to take the time to analyze your school's culture and hiring practices to ensure you are not accidentally sabotaging your best hiring intentions with any hidden or implicit biases. Teaching tolerance organization, you may be familiar with them, of course. They offer a tool for administrators. It's called Test Your Hidden Bias. Here's the URL if you're interested in jotting it down. I'll certainly have it available after the presentation, and I'd be happy to share it with you. But take a second to jot that down if you feel a need to do so. Okay, here's your action step, and it would be take just a self-assessment to identify the strengths and weaknesses of your school's biases, and then adjust or revise your organization's plan of equity and inclusion accordingly. By doing so, you better establish a working environment that reflects the extent of which, your faculty work and the trust that you have and the respect that one another have, or they have for one another. And this type of environment is attractive and welcoming to new teachers who are looking for a place to work. I assure you that this is something that is very apparent looking outside in. Sometimes we're too close to it when we're there as part of the faculty and team. But for those who may be entering or looking outward in, they can clearly see what it looks like. And that would go to the next principle of your culture, your school's culture. So consider your school's culture when looking at recruiting teachers. The culture of your school consists primarily of the underlying norms and values and beliefs that teachers and administrators hold about teaching and learning. And of course, culture is also composed of the traditions and ceremonies schools hold to build community and reinforce the values. The school's culture is something that principals and that can influence, unlike budgets and salaries and challenges that are out of a principal's control. The goal here really is to cultivate a school culture into a positive school culture and to avoid a toxic one. Okay, few action steps or an action step that you can take is evaluate your school's culture by observing and talking with others, not just talking with your teachers, but talking with other faculty and staff and those that are around the school, those who can give you really good opinions and be honest with you. Then ask yourself, what aspects of my school culture are positive and should be reinforced? What aspects of my school culture are negative and harmful and should be changed? I'm always attending webinars and getting ideas and talking with other recruiters and HR personnel and principals and leaders and so forth. And I actually attended a webinar not long ago, and I cannot remember the presenter's name. So I love to give her credit, but I can't do so by name. But she was very creative, and she was able to share some of the ideas and some of the things that they did at their school or they do at their school when it comes down to recruiting new teachers. And one thing they do is they take a picture of the new hire, the new teacher that's there, that comes aboard, and they take a picture of this person, this new teacher, and they post it to their social media. Of course, everybody's on social media. People love it. The new teacher is reposting, retweeting, and sharing it with family and everyone else. And it really is just a great opportunity to show, a really nice, warm welcome. Another thing she shared was a gift. The principal actually got stationery, personalized stationery for the new teachers as they came in, very inexpensive to do. And on the first day of class, took it over to the new teacher. And it was a really great way to kind of check in and show support and kind of a nice icebreaker and just simply a nice gesture. Again, these are all very positive things that can be done very inexpensively and really promotes good, positive culture. Celebrating success is a really big one, of course. Any kind of success, big or small. Again, if a teacher is awarded or nominated for some type of award, whether it's something on a local level, it could be something on a larger level or scale, but nonetheless, any kind of acknowledgement of goodness or something that the teacher has done that's really outstanding, it should be recognized at meetings, at your school ceremonies, and again, it's a great way to post it, a great thing to post on your social media. Others are seeing it, following you guys, and again, very inviting and welcoming to new teachers. One last example, let's see here. Actually, teachers looking for a place to work often research your schools and districts. Again, they're on social media, so they definitely will see some of these highlights. And then it's also another way to see and demonstrate how school leaders and educators are supported. So that's really important for new teachers to feel that or get that sense of support coming from staff, from faculty. Okay, let's take a look at the fourth principle, which is know your strengths. Focus on what would entice any teacher to want to work at your school. What makes your school a great place to work? What makes your community a special place to live? I hesitate sometimes, even now, in making some of the following suggestions because, one, I know it's very time consuming to do this, but I think it's important, especially doing it early in the school year. But I'll go ahead and share some of these ideas with you, and hopefully, you can take and at least execute a few of those and get a better sense of some of the great things that's in your school community. Know your community in which your school is located. Drive around, see what business and services are there. Visit your city's website. That's something that I did when I moved to a new community. Find out what new developments there are there, the neighborhoods, and see how that may impact your school, the families that are in your school, and ultimately it'll affect your recruitment outlook. Read even the local magazines and the newspapers. You may live in a totally different community, but knowing what's happening in the school in which you're operating and you're running, you're the head of, it's really important to kind of know what's going on there. And then here we can shift to the candidate. Know something personal about the candidate that you're interviewing. If you know about the candidate, you know if that candidate is a dog lover because you've seen the pictures on Twitter account or Facebook, mention that in the interview and say, we have a dog park that's only 5 blocks away from the school. You might want to visit on weekends. It's a great place to live. And again, some of these things are really good incentives for a teacher who's considering to live and work in a certain community or at your school because they're there interviewing. And 2 words about social media stalking. Please don't. There are some recruiters and some leaders who find candidates that they're going to interview. They'll find them on Twitter and find their Facebook account, search accounts, and unfortunately, they see things that negatively affect the candidate. And the truth is, most recruiters find reasons not to hire a candidate than reasons to hire that candidate. And usually those things have little to do with the candidate's credibility or as skills as a teacher, or abilities or qualifications of being an excellent teacher. So it's really, I caution you with doing it. I really like social media for certain purposes, but when it comes to recruitment, it really is a fine line. You can really miss out on getting some excellent candidates because you may or may not like, or you may not like something that you've seen on their social media account. And then know your school, again, back to just knowing the strengths related to the person as a whole. It's important, it's a place to work, but we want to have somewhat of a social relationship with those that are around us and those that we work with. And it's important. You can have a teacher, a parent who is a yoga instructor who you may know and say, hey, would you have a few extra minutes once a week, maybe on a Wednesday, you can come and do a yoga class for our teachers, after school. And you'd be surprised in how much you can get involved, how you can get the parents involved and do things for your teachers at no cost or very low cost. The point is here, you should know your school strengths related to the whole person, related professionally, and related to all that's around. I was actually going to do an activity, but after looking at the time as well as the way the system works, I don't think we'll be able to do it. But please take a second and jot down some things that are really great about your school. Take a minute to do so. My school is a great place to work because, and perhaps you can share that with others. And as a question you can ask those around you or your teachers, because it's, again, a way to get feedback. Abduction programs instructional practices, which include freedom to plan and teach. Millennials do not like to be micromanaged, so that really is a plus. That's a strength for your school. If that's the way you operate, that's really good incentive for them. How your leadership team empowers open-mindedness, that's also a great strength. Support from your ancillary staff and secretaries and administrative assistants. Teachers have that access, that's wonderful. And supportive parents and the active parent-teacher association. Those are really good things to be able to showcase and to say to new teachers, or when you're out trying to attract teachers to your school, to go ahead and promote those things. Okay, and before I get to that principle, I just kind of like to say, though there are some out there I know that feel like, hey, I don't live in a type of neighborhood where I really, teachers are going to be driving around and using the services, air quotes, I live in my schools in a bad neighborhood. We serve the majority of underprivileged students, parents weren't involved. We have fewer resources than needed, challenged by, some of the daily, academic challenges, whatever those may be. This does not mean that there aren't aspects about your school, your faculty, and the students that won't be appealing and inviting to new teachers. You just have to be a little bit more creative in finding those and being able to, again, showcase them. You'd be surprised. It's all about your presentation. Now we can move on to the fifth principle, know your areas of growth. It's question time again. What are some of your goals? And what have you been most successful at achieving? What defines your schools? One common area of growth for many schools and districts is student enrollment, or a shift in student demographics. Like here in Texas, that's where we are. Most of the districts are faced with the fast-growing population of Hispanic families who may or may not be bilingual. Some just speak Spanish exclusively. However, some of the kids, the students, they may have a little English in their language. There are sometimes asked to act as a role of a translator, and that really is a lot for a child. This is a challenge for the teachers who don't speak Spanish, trying to communicate. There are obviously language barriers, and it's a big concern. There are actually a few lawsuits that are out because the schools aren't able to provide certain services to accommodate these needs. So please be aware that your population may be changing as well, and you have to adjust some of your plans. You may not have all the resources, adequate services to the families, and find yourself violating legal or compliance laws. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So just being aware. If you know that your demographics are changing, then you have to, I guess the biggest thing is finding out how to accommodate those. And that could definitely be through your faculty. That's one reason why recruiting a diverse teacher workforce is imperative. All right, the sixth principle, the airport test. Not sure how many of you are familiar with it, but I like the airport test, and it basically goes like this. Okay, what is the airport test? Picture yourself stuck in the airport, sitting at the gate, waiting for your flight that's delayed, possibly for hours. And so you decide, I'm just gonna sit here, I'll check my email, surf the internet, do a little searching, whatever. Just trying to make the good use of your downtime. But there's only so much you can do. And besides, there's a person sitting next to you and she wants to talk. Well, does that sound familiar? Anyone ever been in that situation? Well, you decide, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead. I'm going to talk to this person for a few minutes and decide if it'll be worth the time sitting here until my flight comes. And the big question, I guess, really is, will I stay longer or will I get up and go sit on a runway somewhere and wait for my plane to come? Many recruiters use the airport test as a hiring technique to determine whether the candidate will be worthy of being the kind of colleague others would socialize with after work, enjoy working with. And the airport test is also a way, it's an informal criterion. It's certainly not trying to determine a candidate's level of intelligence or training or knowledge of subject matter. The thing is, makes the airport test good. What makes it good is that it'll help you to discover other equally as important characteristics about the candidate. Your goal is to find out things about the candidate that's not on the resume. Okay, the airport test, it has 4 things that are pretty much standing out. It consists of 4 items. If a candidate can pass this test, then it maybe are very likely to be a good fit for your school. Okay, let's take a look at this. Number 1, be more than just a resume. The candidate must have something interesting to say about herself that'll make her stand out. And in the interview, does she mention a hobby or do something out of the ordinary? Did she say something that was really cool about herself? Something that you'll remember. He should give you a reason to remember. The second thing is, was the candidate serious, or did the candidate make some humor, light humor, appropriate humor? Can she shift gears and say something that is funny? You're looking for a candidate that's somewhat relaxed and comfortable, and that the candidate seems to be someone that's actually easy to talk with. The third thing is, do you want a candidate who is actually talking too much all the time? Well, certainly a good candidate will be able to tell you some things about herself, but should allow the person who is interviewing to actually have some talk time. And the fourth thing is, did the candidate establish a good rapport? Candidates should look for some ways, some information about the school, not asking you questions that could be found on the website, but perhaps looking at information, maybe your LinkedIn account, if they know the candidate knows who's actually conducting the interview, or certainly knowing about the school, and using this information to have conversation throughout the interview. The candidate should have found something in common, which is the big thing, in some way to connect with you, the school, and that too will help that candidate to stand out. So ask yourself, by the end of the interview, by the end of the airport test, did you get a sense that the candidate is perhaps what we call a kid magnet, someone who loves being around the kids, someone where did that candidate tell you stories where kids are always in her classroom and always doing things with the students? Does she like soccer? Does he like soccer, or some type of sport that they can engage with outside of the lesson of the classroom? And did you get a sense that the candidate is interested in programs and activities at the school, and might have responded positively with suggestions of where she or he would like to be involved, being a coach, or heading or spearheading some type of after school activity, maybe the chess club or something like that. The bottom line is, it's important to recruit candidates that'll be a good fit for your school and for your school culture. And the airport test is simply one interview technique used to determine if the candidate is fun and interesting. I'm certainly not implying that this type of assessment is to replace any other interview techniques that you use or strategies in learning more about the candidates and their leadership experience or academic accomplishments or anything like that. This is, again, all of these things help determine whether a candidate is a good fit for your school. All right, the 7th principle. We want to definitely welcome and certainly solicit feedback. That's really important. Ways to do so would be interviews, which are a great way to get feedback from teachers regarding the reasons why they're leaving. using informative assessments from current teachers regarding their experiences, especially if that's a teacher of color. That feedback would be very useful in future recruitment. And work with your team to develop a list of questions about the recruitment and onboarding process at your school. You should also conduct surveys of students and parents. Again, at the end of the school year may be a good time, or at parent-teacher meeting may be a good time. Everyone's role has value. And this is how you learn about what others are thinking about your school, the operations of your school. Any information you get, again, is valuable. So knowing others' perception of your school could help you to better plan for improvement. And people usually, those who usually see everything but say nothing unless asked, or folks that are unassuming, such as your custodial staff, cafeteria workers, they see and know what's going on. They're great people to talk with to get opinions and information. A few more ways to get feedback. Consider having all teachers participate anonymously to get a clear picture of the experience at your school. And analyze the differences in the experiences of teachers from different ethnic backgrounds. Again, everyone's perspective is different and should be relevant. Certainly be able to make adjustments after you get the feedback. After you've gotten feedback in a variety of ways, you can work to adjust your practices and become more welcoming and inclusive. Establish trust in communication by never penalizing teachers for giving honest feedback about their experiences. And then the importance of trust. Trust your feedback, even feedback that may be hard to hear. Feedback is a part of the process of becoming a stronger, more diverse team of educators. And in closing, I'd just like to say the 7 principles are simply guides that'll help you attract and recruit and hire and also retain teachers of diverse backgrounds. And if you want them to stay, you have to continue to create a school culture and work environment that'll cultivate the growth and development of all your faculty. And while it's critical to diversify the teaching force, just hiring teachers, minority teachers, or male teachers, transgender teachers, really that is not enough. There must be a strong sense of diversity, but as well excellence, that they will go hand in hand. Those two things are very important. So thanks for attending. I hope you enjoyed. We certainly, this concludes the webinar presentation, and we will take some questions. Before doing so, please jot down my contact information again. You have any questions, you're welcome to call. If you all are looking to learn more about diversity recruitment, I can certainly help you with that as well. So I think I'm turning this back over to Daphne. We'll be able to take some questions.
Trina, thank you so very much. This has been a wonderful, wonderful presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them up. We'll go ahead and take a few questions right now. We'll wait a few seconds if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Trina. All right, so we'll give a few seconds for the questions that you might have. I just wanted to share with you that our next webinar is going to be called Engage, Empower, and Evolve, a Guide to Project-Based Learning. It's going to be presented by Allison Brown-Lands. She's a support program specialist for the East Baton Rouge Parish School System. That webinar will be on July 19th, 2017 at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So Information about registering for this particular webinar will be available on our website very soon. We want to see you all register. And so I don't see that we have any questions. I think you have Trina's contact information so that you can communicate with her. Just a little bit about the American Association for Employment and Education. We're a very unique organization that brings together K-12 school districts, human resources side, and educational leaders with the Career Center and College of Ed people at the university level. So it's those who prepare educators and those who hire educators working together to build this wonderful profession. If you're interested in joining, you can visit our website at aaee.org, or you can contact me directly or the Executive Director, Deb Snyder. And so we appreciate all of your time. Again, Trina, this was wonderful. Thank you so very much. I know that all participants got a lot of great information from this. And so we hope to see you all next time for our next webinar. And thank you so much for participating in this webinar, 7 recruitment principles for principals. And you all have a great day.